came to this one particular cell. I looked inside of it, and it was like the inside of a furnace. And in it was Adolf Hitler. You can't mistake him. He was like going through each person for however long it takes to cremate somebody or gas them. He was going through that over and over and over and over and over again. And then suddenly, and that'll probably change in a few billion years. It'll probably be something far worse later on. And that's what he was doing. I just saw him at that point burning in there. And yet flesh would be consumed in flames and burn off and come back on his skin. I can't explain it. And he would feel the pain. And yet he was getting violently angry. The vile hate that he had. And people don't realize he was involved in heavy duty into the occult world. And that's pretty much the primacy of his power of deception, was the use of Luciferianism, if you want to know the truth, and the ancient pagan Nordic religions they practice and stuff. But anyway, that's neither here nor there, but he was there being burned, and I always called it is like inside the places where they burn the bodies, and each one body at a time, and experiencing what those people went one body at a time as the victim, and is responsible for, the gas chambers. 6 million Jews, and I don't know how many other people, 8 or 9 million people were in the concentration camps, died. You'd be experiencing every single one of those.
And he was going through, as he put through so many Jewish people through the furnace, or not furnace, but it was through a poison. But he was going through that same destruction himself that he put countless others through.
Yeah. Part I saw was just in there experiencing the flames, but I knew intuitively that he experienced the gas chambers. He experienced being stripped. He experienced being raped. He experienced all being buried alive, just in all that stuff, and put in back of vans too, and die of carbon monoxide poisoning, where they got rid of the worthless eaters, as they say, the DD people, and it was horrible thing. I mean,
yeah, in a sense, sure. I mean, we're all feeling it. We're all feeling such a horrendous period in history, and we have, this is a person he appeared. I would imagine, I'm just guessing, that in some semblance of how he appeared in real life.
Yeah, you can't mistake his image and likeness.
But
little mustache and everything. He looked like the pictures of him about 1945, where he was pinching some German kid soldier on the cheek. That guy survived the war and talked about that. But he was bent over. He was, I don't know. I think what some people said that he might have Parkinson, or Parkinson induced by the drugs that he was being given. The amphetamines that he was getting. He was a drug addict. People don't know that, but they come out with that. And Dr. Morell gave him shots and some methamphetamine, actually, synthetic form. Well, that's what he gave him.
He was reliving that same hellish experience that he put others through. And we can confirm, certainly through your account, that God is a God.
All those people were getting it. They all are. Saw a lot of them. And also people from way long time ago, ancient days, that did horrible things to other people, soldiers, whatever. I saw that as well.
So. Yes, the Assyrian armies are still excavating ruins where people were beheaded, and sadly we see many of those same practices in certain parts of the world. So, gotta ask you, Bryan, and I know we're coming to a close here, but there are people that are watching this, and they're saying, I I want to make sure that I don't go there. I want to know that when I die, that I will meet Jesus and he'll say, welcome. So what happened to you when you came back from this hellacious experience of hell? What happened?
Well, it was shortly after seeing I call it this lower area where I saw these Nazi folks and people that were, I call a level where a lot of people were involved in the occult. And a lot of people don't know that when I was younger, I got involved in the mind science stuff. I was an atheist, but I thought you can use the power of the mind. And so I came to this open cube in the back recesses of the pit, and all these entities were inside of it. I knew this is where I belonged. This is it. And I was weakening. I could hardly say Jesus Christ anymore. And I was scared out of my wits. And I didn't know what to do, but I knew this was it. And this is where my cell where we entered would be. And with all these nasty people. And so I was like, my feet were in a dusty, miry goo. It was dust, but gooey. And these little wormy things would come out of the ground with teeth and yell blasphemies, and these white moths would float around, and they had faces on them with teeth. I'm sitting there, and all these entities in there trying to get me into this cell, saying, and I realized when that thing was telling me he offered half the kingdom, I didn't realize he was going to have half the kingdom of hell to torment me. That was the reward they were going to give me, It's like, wow, that's why the cell was open. And so inside there, it looked like a dentist chair, but I knew it was not a dentist chair. I knew it was an entity that gave the illusion as a dentist chair. I have nothing against dentists. I can go to sleep, get my teeth drilled. Doesn't bother me one bit. But so we're being propelled in this place, and I was at my wit's end. I didn't know. I was totally abandoned by God. I felt like this was the end. This is where I knew I deserved this place, and I still know it. And this is where I deserve to be. And all of a sudden, I felt a presence coming up behind me, and the entities there were getting agitated. And I thought, well, whoever's coming up behind me must be great authority. It must be the devil himself with his pitchfork. He's just going to throw me in. And my mind was wondering. And so my mind would wander, saying, I could just imagine, my parents would have a funeral for me. Things go through your mind. I can't explain it. And so you're going through your mind that to have a funeral, and the preacher would say, oh, Bryan was a good old boy. And there's no way I could tell my parents I was in a bad place. I couldn't tell anybody. I wanted to tell everybody to avoid this place. I couldn't. I knew this was my fate. This is where I deserve to be. This is my full nature, sin nature, totally exposed. I saw my ugly pride for what it is and what it does. And I felt this presence coming behind me, and I thought that presence was going to throw me into this place, because I did not want to go, and I was being pushed by a force into it, though my feet weren't moving. And the dirt was going over my feet and stuff, and all those worms going around, coming out of the ground. I won't get into all that. And so as soon as all of a sudden I heard footsteps, and the footsteps would shake the ground, boom, boom. And all of a sudden the entities took off out of that cell and hid and got out of there. And in all that time, if I start crying, I after all these years, it just every time I talk about this, it's hard. Was Jesus. He was behind me. He picked me up. And I'm distracted, dude. He picked me up. Sorry.
Oh, don't.
And he picked me up and carried me like a baby. And I saw the holes in his wrist, and his bones pulled apart. I lost it, because I knew I pulled his bones apart. I put him on the cross, even though I wasn't there. By how I betrayed, abandoned people, backstabbed them, put burdens on them. And I just wept on his shoulder. And he carried me out of there. And I never cried so hard in my life. Because I did not deserve to be rescued. Very hard for people to understand. So my concept of grace is quite different than most people. Grace is not greasy. Grace is not cheap because it's free. Came with a great cost. He was nailed to a cross. We got to realize that we're wretches and we nailed him to him. We deserve wrath, not mercy, and I found grace instead. And that's how you get saved. And you realize just. Well, anyway, I was brought out of that pit, trying to collect myself here, and we went back to the cell I entered into, and went back. We both went through that tornado-like vortex, and just a minute, sorry.
Well,
But anyway, I'm trying to.
you're ready. I was going to give you a reprise there, but you're ready for the. What you're talking about is in the Bible when Lazarus, not the Lazarus who was Jesus raised from the tomb, but there was Lazarus, who was a man that this is an account of Jesus, who was in hell and said, just tell my relatives, basically my loved ones, that hell is a real place, and that's essentially what you're doing now. Jesus is giving you this forum to share that, but he said no, they wouldn't believe because it's
Well, yeah, he took me out of there, and then we came back out of that tornado vortex, went back to where I came to on that big rock, suspended in space, and the light was coming from him. I could see the holes in his feet and the nail prints in his wrists. I couldn't see his face. He still had a hood on. And he set me down and began to talk to me through thought. I don't have time to go through all that, but he told me I was going to come back, and he blew on me, and I went back.